And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one.
Hey guys, this is Spencer Defense Training. I want to go over church security deterrents, how we can deter criminals, bad people that we don't want in our churches. So I want to go over that here for just a few minutes, so stay tuned. We make holsters. We have custom holsters that we make, so you can go check those holsters out. defensetraining.org/holsters. Alright, back to the video. Hey guys, this is Spencer Defense Training. I want to go over a few things with church safety and or security. In South Carolina, we can't call it a security team unless we're licensed security, but we can call it a safety team, and we can be armed under the safety team and all that, in which the church that I'm at, that we are. But I want to go over two suggestions I have, especially if your church won't allot you a lot of money to the safety team. And I know a lot of people say, well, my church doesn't have money for that and this and that. Well, I don't believe that. I believe your church won't allot you the money for it because they don't believe it's that big of a deal. They don't believe it can happen to them, in which it can. There are thousands of violent crimes in churches every year. We don't hear about them all. In fact, there was a study done, I believe it was between 1989 and 2015, of shootings in churches. Now, this isn't mass shooters. This could be disgruntled ex-husbands, stuff like that, and the actual shooting happened on the church grounds. Within just a few states, there was an investigative officer that had records to several states. He was a state investigator, and he said there was somewhere around, or a little more than 3,000 shootings in churches on the property. They just didn't list them as churches. They listed them as businesses, which that's what we are. We're 503c. We're a business under government eyes, and for those of you that's leadership, it would be elders in our church, in the true setup church, right? That eldership's the leadership, right? But they don't allot that money because, oh, that can't happen here. But if you're in a church with 140, 150 members, you're in the same size church as the biggest mass shooting this ever happened in America. It was a church around that size, and it was 23 killed, 23 wounded. A very small rural community. And one of the things they didn't have is they didn't have a lot of deterrents, at least on that day. And that shooter, my understanding, that was not his first hit. He went somewhere else, and they had a police officer there. And then there was another active shooter that had went somewhere else, and then there was other deterrents, cameras and such. So there's two suggestions I have for you. One of those suggestions is two-way radios. I'm going to get there here in a minute. But the first suggestion is cameras. So even if your church won't allot you a lot of money to cameras, now the first thing you need to do is have some armed members on your team. And once you get all that established and you're trying to move forward with that, invest in some cameras. Now, if your church isn't allotting you money for the cameras, or at least not a big budget, you know, just a few $100s a year or something, which is ludicrous. That's not much at all. One, I suggest you chipping in, and I've even told people this, and I know people are like, oh, you can't do this, but I would withhold tithes, and because you're putting it toward the church anyway, and you just do with it what you think's necessary. I can't say I haven't ever done that, because I have. I'm like, well, we need this. They're not wanting to spend the money on it. I'll just take tithes out for the next 6 weeks, and I'll take that money, I'll buy it, and I'll get it. And I will put it in the church. I don't think God would have a problem with that, but that's between you and your prayers, right, with God. However, if they want to allot you so much money and you can't afford a whole lot, one is I suggest getting at least 2 to 4 cameras. All right, so you get your 2 to 4 cameras, you get it set up, and I suggest decent cameras. The blink, this is not the setting for all that. You need decent cameras. I will link the cameras that we use down below here. We actually have a 32 camera system, so we have a small grounds, but we have almost every square inch of the grounds covered with those cameras. Now, let's say you can only afford a 2 camera system or a 4 camera system. I don't know how low they go, but you can afford the 8-bay DVR camera system with only 2 cameras, right? So you put 2 cameras in strategic areas. The main entrance would be one, and probably a rear entrance would be the other. But I would highly suggest after that you get fake cameras that look exactly like the cameras you have. And I would set my monitor up in a way that they couldn't see the cameras or what you're watching but they know you've got them. That's kind of tricky in some churches, but other churches, you go, oh, well, they'll see it, but they can't really see what's going on it, which is the way we have ours. You can see several of the cameras, but that's all you can see. You can see there's a bunch of cameras, but they can't really tell what's being recorded or watched. But get fake cameras to cover every square inch of the church. And then when you can get another camera, replace a fake one with a real one. That is a big deterrent. Cameras are big deterrents. So when you put cameras up, what you'll notice is you'll have people ride through your parking lot if you haven't noticed it. And if you don't have cameras or don't have people in the front door, go stand outside. And you'll have people riding through the parking lot, and what they're doing is they're casing your cars. But you put cameras up and that stops. That's what happened with us. We had several people where they would ride through the parking lot, and we had a doorman anyway, so they would ride in, they would see the doorman, they'd ride off, but now they've started spotting all the cameras. So you could see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can see 7 cameras out front that covers the whole front parking lot, and they don't do it anymore. So that's a big deterrent, and that will also deter mass shooters or anybody wanting to do any kind of violent crime. But we've got them all through the sanctuary, we've got them down the halls, we've got them everywhere. Every classroom's covered. But if you can't afford the real cover cameras, get fake ones. And they will see and they'll be like, oh, this place is covered, okay. Now I suggest replacing them as soon as you can and get real ones. But if you can't afford the real ones at first, get you some fake ones. Also with the radios, I highly suggest getting radios. I do not suggest cheap radios. I do not like cheap radios. One, they don't work. At least they didn't for us. Now, you're outside with no interference or anything like that, they're fine. I actually have a cheap set for camping. I'm out in the woods, within a quarter of a mile, we can hear each other great. But in a church setting, in a safety, security type setting, they just don't work well enough. They get mumbled, they get muffled, they get static, and you just can't hear what's going on. So I suggest getting some decent radios. So these are the Hyteras, is what we use. I'll put a link to these in the description. We got them from 2aradiocenter.com. These are very good. They're 12 channels. They have a lot of features. So there'll actually be another video about the radios. But the one thing I wanted to cover about the radio is, one, get a decent professional radio. Now this is the in-the-door professional. This is not the lowest one, but this is the next one up, I believe. I think it's 2 or 3 tiers up from in the door. They're not cheap. These radios run around $400 if you get an earpiece each. So they're not cheap. You can get some cheaper ones, about $300 with an earpiece each. Now, you contact 2aradiocenter.com. They're in Greer, South Carolina. They're right up the road from us. We actually went and picked them up. Talked to those guys. Hey, what do we need? We have 2 buildings. We got one sanctuary building with a few classrooms and a classroom building. What do we need to contact each other? This is how the square feet of our property. And they're like, this is what you need. So they hooked us up. And they cut us a great deal as well. So we got a good deal on them. We bought 8 of them. So we have quite a few people. Even though we've only got about 140, 160 members on Sunday morning, we've got quite a decent safety team, plus a medical team, plus a welcoming team. We've got all that, which is fortunate about the congregation I'm at. But one of the things I highly suggest is when you get your radios, and I'm not going to attach all this either, but when you get your radios, what you want to do is you want to get your little earpieces. And this is my suggestion. You ever heard fake it till you make it? So you've got this little radio, you got this little earpiece, you put it around your ear. And again, I'm not going to put it on, but I'm just going to flop it around my ear. And with your earpiece, you've got this little, if you can see it, you've got this little wire kind of hanging. So mine kind of hangs, it would be clipped to the back of my shirt right here, and it would look something like this. Right, so we've got this, and everybody knows what this means. This means this is some kind of security, or this is some kind of law enforcement, typically, unless you're at Target. They've got them as well for the most part, but typically this is what you see with those agents, and you can get it to where the little squiggly hides a little bit, but it's still seen if you want it to be seen. I suggest, even if you get cheap radios, so even if you have to get the $200 6-pack from Amazon, which is honestly not good at all, we had them. This is what we upgraded from. This is how I can say this is not good. But even if you have those, or you can afford a couple of these, maybe 2, right, out the door, maybe 1 year you get 2 the next year, because they can program them into each other, and you get more. They keep programming them to that setting, and you can keep adding, you know, even if it's 1 a year, you keep adding 1 a year until you get your team covered. I suggest buying a bunch of earpieces, even if they're not connected to a radio. So literally you can get these things for like 20 bucks. You can get some really cheap ones for probably 10 or 15. But I suggest getting the earpiece, and even if you have some of your leadership that are willing, that aren't on the safety team, put this little earpiece in and just have it below his collar, but there's just a little earpiece. People will think you have earpieces. And if you see somebody shady, you know, we don't stereotype, we don't shun anybody away from church. That's where they need. You let it be known, you know, you walk to them and you walk by them and they see that earpiece as you walk by. They see 2 or 3 other earpieces as you're walking around. That is a deterrent. I know a lot are like, well, we don't want to scare the congregation off. Guys, crime's real. It's out there. Jesus knew this. Luke 22:36, let the one that has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. And no, it is not talking about the Bible, because it is the same sword that Peter used to chop off the servant's ear. It is a literal sword. Crime's real. Deter it with the love of Christ. I'm not doing anything more than have our cameras. I've got the earpieces in my guys, so we've got, you know, 7 guys, 8 guys with earpieces in, walking around, checking things out, saying, hey, how you doing? Welcoming everybody in, being nice and cordial to everybody until we're needed. And then when we have to act, we have to act. We're told in Romans 12:18 to live peaceable with everyone, that as much as it depends on us, as best we can, but we know that goes out the door a lot of times, and we have to take action. We have to do what we have to do, and sometimes we have to use that sword. So I suggest cameras. If you can't afford the whole place covered with cameras, get you some fake ones. Get several real, several fake that look just like the real, and then I suggest getting you good radios. But get earpieces. Some of them can be fake, and it's just an extra deterrent, because some of the crimes that have happened have been deterred by radio earpieces and cameras. So that's one of my suggestions to you guys. Deterrence is what we look for where we're at. We want to deter anybody from coming into that church that doesn't want to find God. If they're just coming into the church to steal or harm, I don't want you there. You're not there to worship God. You're there to do me harm, so I don't want you there. We had a couple guys that kept coming in, and we used to, back when the whole thing was going on, everybody put the money baskets basically at the door so people could leave money as they came and went, right? There was a guy that kept coming and sitting near the money. Now, our front door guy always caught him. Basically, we just looked him, eye him down, and the guy would end up leaving. But we got rid of that when I came in, and I come on as director. I said, hey, I said, move this, let's get it somewhere else. And we did. We put a lockbox back on the wall so it drops and it goes down in, and they can't get to it. The guy hasn't been back. Not saying I don't want him back to worship God. I'm not saying I don't want him back to follow Jesus. I don't want him back to steal. So that's one of the things that I know a lot have issues. Well, we want everybody there. I want everybody there that wants to worship God. I don't want the people there that are there just to do you harm. So there is a difference. And I know a lot, it's like, well, they may hear the word doubtful. If they're there to do you harm, they're going to come in and do you harm. So we deter that harm. So cameras, earpieces, big deterrents. Greeters are also deterrents as well, but most of you already have your greeters and stuff out there like there. Make sure they have a good eye for people, and they report to the safety team of what they've seen and stuff like that. But cameras and earpieces, guys. Alright, this is Spencer, Defense Training. Stay safe. Stay armed. Hey, we want to take a second just to let you know that we offer concealed weapons classes in South Carolina. We are in Anderson, South Carolina. So if you're local to us, check us out at defensetraining.org. We also offer other training as well. You can check that out again, defensetraining.org. Please like, subscribe, and comment on this video below. Thanks.